This Manchester United midfield looks scary, and I mean that in the best way possible, because if the reports are right, United are about to finish an overhaul that fans have been begging for since Erik ten Hag left. Let's get into it. David Ornstein dropped the bomb this morning. United and Brighton are closing in on a deal for Carlos Baleba. The offer on the table is around £60 million, plus £5 million in add-ons, and that number could still climb towards 70. Compare that to last summer, when United tried to sign him for £75 million, and Brighton laughed them out of the room asking for over 100. Times change fast in football, don't they? Now here's the thing everyone's been asking about. Didn't Baleba just get injured? Yes, he did. He picked up ankle ligament damage during pre-season a couple of weeks back. But according to reporting from Sky Sports and The Athletic, the issue isn't considered serious, and he's not expected to be out long-term. So this isn't some reckless gamble on a broken player. It's a short-term knock, not a season-ending disaster. And here's something worth pointing out about how this deal is even happening in the first place. Personal terms are reportedly already agreed, with Baleba set to sign a 5-year contract that would keep him at Old Trafford all the way until 2031. What that tells you is this wasn't a rushed decision on either side. This is a player who already knew what he wanted, and a club that already knew what it was getting. The only thing left to sort out was the fee between United and Brighton, and even that gap has closed a lot faster than anyone expected. Okay, but why does this actually matter? Why is one 22-year-old defensive midfielder getting United fans this hyped? Because Baleba is exactly the profile this midfield has been missing for years. United have had passers, United have had creators. What they haven't had is someone who can just cover ground, break up play, and physically dominate the middle of the pitch. That's Baleba's entire game. Since joining Brighton from Lille back in 2023, he's built a reputation as one of the most athletic, ball-winning midfielders in the whole Premier League. But let's not pretend it's all upside, because it isn't. Last season was rough for him, really rough by his own standards. The constant transfer talk seemed to get inside his head, and his form dipped hard in the first half of the campaign. He did recover a bit in the second half, but it wasn't the Baleba that once looked like he could be worth over 100 million. So the real question United fans should be asking isn't, is he talented? Everyone knows he's talented. The question is whether a fresh start, in the right environment, can bring that level back out of him. That's the gamble, and it's a fair one to be nervous about. Nobody can promise the answer right now, and that's what makes this signing fascinating to watch unfold. Let's rewind a bit further too, because Baleba's rise has actually been pretty rapid. He only joined Brighton from French side Lille back in 2023 for a fee in the region of £27 million. Since then, he's racked up over 100 appearances for the Seagulls and turned himself into one of the most talked about young midfielders anywhere in Europe. At one stage last year, some reports had his valuation creeping toward the kind of numbers Chelsea paid Brighton for Moises Caicedo a couple of seasons back. That's the ceiling we're talking about here. A player who, on his day, has been compared to one of the most expensive midfielders in Premier League history. Now here's where this story gets bigger than just one signing. Baleba isn't arriving into an empty midfield. He's the third piece of what's genuinely looking like a full midfield rebuild. United have already brought in Youri Tielemans from Aston Villa and Andrés Santos from Chelsea, and together with Baleba, that's roughly £150 million spent rebuilding the engine room in one single window. Add Kobbie Mainoo into the mix, and suddenly United have 4 genuine central midfield options to rotate between 2 positions. That's not something this club has been able to say in a very, very long time. Let's talk about the contrast between these 3, because they're not the same type of player at all, and that's actually the whole point. Tielemans is the safe one. Premier League proven, technically excellent, low risk. If United get 2 or 3 good years out of him at the price they paid, that's one of the best value signings of the whole summer. Santos is the developing one. Only 22, still learning the position, but he's already looked more comfortable holding down the middle of the park in pre-season than a lot of people expected. And then there's Baleba, the risky one, but also the one with the highest ceiling, because he brings something Tielemans and Santos simply don't. Raw athleticism, ground coverage. That out-of-possession bite that this United midfield has been crying out for. Think about it like this. Tielemans and Santos both give you control. They keep the ball moving, they dictate tempo, but neither of them is built to be the enforcer, the one guy who chases down a counter-attack on his own and snuffs it out before it becomes a problem. That's exactly what got exposed against AC Milan in pre-season when United got hit on the transition and had nobody built to stop it. Baleba fixes that specific weakness. He's protection where the other two are control. And that word, protection, matters more than people realize. Think about corners and set pieces. Think about the moment United commit numbers forward and get caught on the counter. Right now, who's covering that space? With Baleba in the side, you've got someone whose entire job is to sit, read the danger, and snuff out a transition before it becomes a 3-on-2 the other way. That's not a flashy skill. It doesn't show up on a highlight reel very often, but it's the difference between a midfield that looks good in possession and a midfield that actually wins you football matches week in, week out. Now, is this midfield perfect? No, and let's be honest about the gaps that are still there. United reportedly missed out on Elliot Anderson, who ended up joining Manchester City instead for a British record fee of £116 million. That one's going to sting every time Anderson lines up against United this season. They were also linked with Sandro Tonali and lost out on Matheus Fernandes, who moved to Tottenham instead after Spurs put serious money on the table. So this wasn't a perfect summer where United got every name on their wish list. But sometimes missing your first choice and pivoting to different profiles actually works out better than expected, because now you've got balance instead of 3 players who all do the same thing. Let's put the Anderson number in perspective for a second. £116 million made him the most expensive British player in history, and City beat United to it. That's a tough one to swallow if Anderson was genuinely on the radar as the marquee name. But here's the flip side. Would one superstar all-rounder have actually solved more problems than 3 complementary players covering 3 different jobs? That's genuinely debatable. Sometimes a squad doesn't need one brilliant individual, it needs the right pieces fitting together properly, and right now that's what United appear to be building. Here's what really stands out to me about this whole approach. Every single one of these 3 midfield signings has come from inside the Premier League. Tielemans from Villa, Santos from Chelsea, Baleba from Brighton. That's not an accident. United have clearly decided that Premier League experience matters more than potential upside from abroad this summer. And honestly, given how badly some previous signings struggled to adapt to English football, that's not a bad strategy at all. So let's zoom out for a second. United are back in the Champions League this season after missing out for 2 years, and that changes everything about squad depth. You can't rely on 11 starters anymore. You need real rotation, real quality in reserve, players who can come in for a midweek European night and not look like a downgrade. A midfield of Baleba, Tielemans, Santos and Mainu gives United exactly that kind of depth for the first time in years. Now, will Baleba actually deliver? That's the part nobody can answer yet. If he walks into Old Trafford and rediscovers the level he was playing at before all the transfer noise messed with his head, United have got themselves one of the best young defensive midfielders in the league for a fraction of what he could have cost 12 months ago. If the dip from last season turns out to be more than just a mental block, United have paid a lot of money for a player still trying to find his best form again. Personally, I think the move makes sense. He's wanted this transfer for over a year. He wanted it so badly that United barely had to convince him, they just had to convince Brighton on price. And when a player has been chasing a move for that long, you'd expect him to hit the ground running once it finally happens. There's also something to be said for a player finally getting the move he's been dreaming about. That kind of motivation can carry a player through a tough opening few months in a way that money and reputation alone can't. So here's my question for you. Out of Baleba, Tielemans, Santos and Mainu, which 2 do you think end up being United's best midfield partnership this season? Drop your answer in the comments and tell me honestly. Are you excited about this midfield, or are you still not convinced Baleba was the right call after last season? Either way, this transfer window just got a whole lot more interesting. Let me know down below.